also underscored by the 10th Amendment, which essentially limits certain federal powers and talks about the state powers. Now, how many of you feel that there's a lot of confidence right now in you of how this government, the United States in general, is being run? How many of you are confident right now that our federal government is being run successfully? Right. I didn't think there'd be any suckers out there. Right. How many of you feel that the government at the federal level, I'm going to bring it down in a minute, have your best interest in mind? All right, so there we are in Article 1, right? They're not doing a very good job at the Article 1 stuff. Now let's get down to the Article 10, which is the state powers. How many of you feel, and I'm going to put my hand up on this, that our state is financially better off today than it had been 6 years ago? I think it is, right? So our governor's done a really good job, I think, in fiscal accountability. Now let me get on to a couple of other areas. How many of you feel this harbor out here is cleaner than it was 5, 6 years ago? You see your hands. It's not cleaner, right? How many of you feel that the education system, and I'm talking about K-12 in Florida, is better than it was 5, 6 years ago? All right? Not really. How many of you think that the local communities, such as the Charlotte County commissioners, or the Lee County commissioners, or the Collier County commissioners, that they have the sovereign authority over what goes on in their counties? Right. And why is that? Well, I'm not going to point. But the reality is that we have a separation again. What's happening up in Tallahassee versus what happens at the local level. I'm going to give an example down in Collier County. DEP knew about all that fracking 6 months before the county commissioners knew. Why? Right? And the people found out immediately after the county commissioners found out. Now the people have to have a lawsuit against the state to get something to happen. That's crazy. So now, what do you think you can do as an individual? You can do that. Do you think that you can sit on your sofa and yell at the television and it'll make a difference?
No.
No. Do you think you can stand out there in the pier and yell at the top of your voice and make a difference?
No.
Do you think you can go knock on your neighbor's door and have a conversation about the things that are important to us in a society and make a difference?
Yeah.
It's about engagement. And I got to tell you folks, that's why I'm running for state senate. I am tired of being non-responded to by my television set. I yell at it and I yell at it, and even if I'm watching Fox, it won't talk back to me. So it's my turn to stand up and do something. And I think there's a lot to be done. And I think right now we are at a critical, pivotal point in our history that if we don't do something strong, immediate, and have the intestinal fortitude to stand up against those who don't believe in individual freedoms and liberties, that we will lose it forever. We can't be mild and meek. We must be very decisive and loud. And it means on the corner, it means in the kitchen, and it means on the Senate floor in Tallahassee. Now, my background, I'm a former executive, corporate executive. I'm a former military guy. I've been living now in Lee County for 11 years. I moved my small business down here 11 years ago. I have a lot of experience in running businesses, employing people, signing the front of checks, paying taxes, making big decisions, being able to figure out what needs to be done in very complicated, urgent times of need. And I also know how to make myself heard to who needs to hear me in order to get things done. Because the mild person, the timid person, doesn't get things done. And if they do get things done, they're small, incremental things. So what I'm here to do is I'm here to put myself out to you in an interview. I want you to look at me, and I want you to ask me very important questions that you have on your mind about why should I represent you in Tallahassee for anything, whether it's dog catcher or state senate. Why do I have the skills to represent you? Why do I have the background? So with that being said, and being conscious of the limited amount of time that I have, I'd like to ask for your questions, because I know you have some. And if you don't ask me questions, I'm just going to keep talking. So the floor is open.
What have you done politically in the past?
Yeah, so the question is my political experience. I have never been elected to anything other than the Bokeelia Civic Association. All right? Seriously, I'm not a career politician. I did run in the last congressional race down in District 19. I was one of 4 Republican candidates. I was the one that you did not hear a whole lot about because it was my first time out. And I got to say, I was in it to win it. I did pretty good. But it was a 4-way race, and you know, as a 4-way race, there can only be one winner, and it wasn't me. I do want to say that Kirk Clausen is doing a good job up there in Washington already, and he was the one that prevailed. Another businessman. I do have federal experience in legislation. I was the #2 guy in the FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration, for all of production and airworthiness. So I was at the DC job, doing international treaties with foreign governments, doing congressional stuff, lawmaking, rules, policy development, oversight of our industrial complex in the United States. So I have a lot of government experience, but never as an elected official. Chris.
One of our main concerns is Common Core. Education is key for everything, and it's an existential threat right now. In 2013, there was a bill, SB 1076, that was sponsored by Elizabeth Benaquisto to implement Common Core, and then she turned the other side later. What would you do if the leadership pressured you to support something like Common Core, which is detrimental to our kids? How would you oppose them, or would you?
Yeah. So I think it's a question of character, is really what it is. Because if you stand up for what you believe in, it doesn't matter how much pressure you get from any direction. You must stand on your convictions and on your principles. So I'm going to put this on the record, there's no fuzz on it, folks. I am not for Common Core. I am not for any rebranding of Common Core. I'm going to go a lot further than that. And I'm also not for Tallahassee at any state level telling us what textbooks we have to have or any of that, except I do believe in Florida standards with regards to an FCAT, right? So as you have it at incremental parts through the history or the chronology of education. So you have points in your education where we make sure that everybody is at that level. But I'm going to tell you right now what Common Core is going to do to our kids. We are going to be teaching them the exams. We're taking recess away from them so that we can spend more time in the classroom teaching them the exams. Now, I believe every bit of education must be local. Now, I'm a father. I'm also a grandparent. I've got 3 beautiful grandbabies. And I would hate to think that a bureaucrat is telling them what they should believe in or what is right from wrong. You know, that is 2 things. That is our local school district, the people that we vote in, as us as parents, being engaged as parents, and as our spiritual leaders, the ones that we select, right? So those are the ones that should be influencing what we know.
What other businesses are you in or have been involved in?
Yeah. So I'll go real quick through my chronology. In 1980, I joined the Army. At that time, it was the Iran-Contra thing. It was our embassy in Tehran had just got overrun. It was kind of like one of those 9/11 syndromes. I joined up the Army, right? So for the next 7.5 years, I was in the U.S. Army. I unfortunately had an accident. Spent 6 months in Army hospital. Got rebuilt. Went through Walter Reed, and I was put out. That put me into a situation where I was no longer working a blue collar type of job because I was an enlisted guy. I was a helicopter crew chief. So I went back to school, got an education, working in the aerospace industry, worked for Northrop, doing clean room activities as the quality engineer on ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Kind of important that they land in the right spot. I worked for McDonnell Douglas in Long Beach for a few years, working on the military side of the business, and then I went over to the commercial side of the business, where they sent me over to Switzerland, where I was responsible for an entire supply base, 36 suppliers in 16 countries, Eastern and Western Europe, a big job. I built a factory for a German company in Wichita, Kansas, ground up, essentially brick and mortar, everything, people, infrastructure, FAA certifications, NASA certifications, DoD certifications. Worked for an R&D firm out in Iowa for a while, then to the FAA, and then prior to starting my own business 13 years ago, I was the vice president of quality for Pratt & Whitney. Pratt & Whitney, for those of you not familiar, they make engines, make the engines for the space shuttles, all the big spaceships, but also the 747s, the A380s, the military jets and stuff like that. Big job. It was 24/7. It was 7 days a week. You know when I would always get the phone calls? Friday at 5 o'clock, right? It was, and people knew about it earlier in the week, but they were afraid to bring it up, or they thought they could resolve it. But you know what that taught me is that you need to build trust in the organization, that the people that work for you and with you have the abilities to manage problems and should not be afraid to bring it up. So I mean that Friday at 5 o'clock eventually got moved up to earlier in the week. Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. Quite evident you're a very intelligent man, and you know, I gotta be honest, you know, we've had a lot of intelligent people, but represented us over the years. And I'm more concerned with your philosophy and what direction you would take. As I see it, more and more of our everyday lives are being controlled by people we have no reach to. Town and city government gets kicked up to county government gets kicked up to state government gets kicked up to federal government, and we have no voice, no control. And you talked about this Common Core, about education being local, which it is. But see, I like to take that a lot further, and I think most all controls should be local. And because there's always this level of plausible deniability. Well, we can't help it because the city can't help it because that's the county's fault. And the county said, well, we gotta do it because the state requires it, and the federal government requires it. There's no one you can go and put your hands around and choke. I really don't like that. I mean, the choke is over.
No, I'm with it.
Like a lot of other people. Okay? I wanna know what you're gonna do, okay, to bring that control back to the people who have to live that life.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Right. And thank you for bringing it up. That's why I'm running. I'm equally as upset as you are on this.
I don't think so.
Come visit me in Bokeelia. I'll show you some problems that I've had to deal with some of the state folks, okay? And I'll tell you a little bit about the emotion that I have when I have to deal with people that come down from Tallahassee and tell me what I can do and not do on my property. And I,
There you go.
no, I'm sorry, that's just a constitutional violation, right? We the people own the property. But then guess what? You think you own your property clear and free?
Yeah.
Don't pay your taxes one
See who
year,
owns it then.
right? You don't own nothing. Government owns it. But you know what? We own the government. So what's wrong with this circle? Now, as I started out my introduction here, you know, I talked about dissatisfaction at the federal level. I started to talk about Tallahassee dissatisfaction and how it's disconnected at the county level. And you've got county commissioners that don't know what's going on in their backyard because you've got state agencies issuing the permits. Is that 4 minutes? All right, thank you. So the problem is that you do have too much of the buck passing. And if everybody owns it, nobody owns it.
Right.
So we need to have a level of accountability, authority back down to the most local level. There is no reason why the DEP should ever issue a drill permit in a county without the county commissioners knowing about it. And they should never make an agreement on fracking without the county commission approving it, right? And because you know I'm talking about Collier County right now. This is a big deal. Or even just now the algae bloom that just started today off our coast, right? Why does the Army Corps of Engineers have the sole authority to let water go? I'm sorry, but that's a lawsuit in the works between the state of Florida and the DEP. And I don't know why we haven't filed that. Because that is damaging so many businesses and health of our citizens. And they do it autonomously. They don't do it with any authority other than their own.
If I might interject something, I'm talking about authority. It always amazes me how this government thinks that they have control over every one of God's creatures that flies through this area, swims along our coastline, or walks upon our land from state to state. Like bear knows, where do they think that they can control every single fish that, and they just kind of go by, but they can tell you exactly what size you can take, how many you can take, and I tell you, I gave up fishing because you need to have 5 lawyers that can figure out what kind of fish you can do. That goes along with everything else.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, again, living on Pine Island, we don't have a fishing industry anymore. You know, they outlawed it. You know, and why is that happening? It's because, and it's not just because of those that are elected, is that we also allow these bureaucrats, the unelected officials who have been there for 20, 30 years to become so entrenched and so powerful that you can't even fire them or hold them accountable. So we need.
No, well, it's not. I'm going to ask a question as soon as.
Okay. I'm almost out of time, but I'm with you. Okay, I believe in the 10th Amendment wholeheartedly. Matter of fact, when you see my T-shirts, that's essentially what it says on there. I'm a 10th Amendment champion. I understand it. I will live it, and I will fight for it. And it comes all the way down to the local level. Yes, sir.
And that is the premise of my question, is that you start out talking about the 10th Amendment. As state senator, what would you do to enforce our 10th Amendment rights and to strengthen our state's rights?
Yeah, well, you know, unfortunately, we don't have a big voice as a state. You know, the way our government's set up, we elect these congressmen and federal senators to represent us in Washington and to ensure that our 10th Amendment rights are not being infringed upon. When they fail to do that, we as a state need to take action. That is where the governor needs to step up and take action. Now, the governor's a busy person, so the people who are elected under the governor need to understand and be very vocal on this, that we need to do something as a state. I would propose that we need to take the federal government to court and to make it very, very clear to them that they are infringing on our livelihood, our economy, our ecology, our education. And you know what? And remind them that there's no provisions in the Constitution to talk about a Department of Environmental Protection or a Department of Energy or a Department of Education. We as a state need to start having these conversations with the feds. And you know, we can't count on the federal elected officials to do that. They're doing other things. They're managing a country. We need to manage a state, and we need to do it loudly. Okay, we can't be quiet. Because if we're quiet, the squeaky gear or squeaky wheel never gets the grease. We as Florida need to stand strong. We need to stand loud, and we need to stand united. Okay? If we're divided, we're going to fall. So what we need to do is focus on those things that are critically important to us, establish consensus on it, and get the movement going. And that can happen. It doesn't take years. It can take months, and we can do something.
Time.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll be around.